On this episode of Sisters Integrated Systemically, we will have a conversation with some of the University of Memphis Black women leadership. We'll discuss some statistics and research findings as it relates to their experiences.
As you all know, Black women are statistically the most educated subgroup in the entire world, yet we are still one of the most underrepresented subgroups in leadership. If you would please, go ahead and introduce yourselves by telling your name, title, and a brief description of your contributions to the university.
My name is Teresa Franklin. I am a executive director in the Division of Research and Innovation. I have been with the university about 2 years now, and I am the executive director for iMPACT. iMPACT is the Institute for Interdisciplinary Memphis Partnerships to Advance Community Transformation. And I've recently, in the last 6 months, become a part of the research development team in the Division of Research and Innovation.
Hi, I'm Stephanie Thompson. I'm the manager of sponsor programs here in the Division of Research and Innovation. I've been with the university for 2 years as well. My role is to, for the most part, assist faculty on campus with submitting their research proposals to sponsors.
I'm Legera Williams. I work in the advancement department. I am the interim director. I've been with the university about 6 years now, professionally, and my main focus is student giving, faculty and staff giving, and all of our emails and things like that go out to fundraise for the university.
Awesome. All right, so go ahead and tell us about your journey to leadership and how did it begin for you?
I think for me, the journey began probably about 20 years ago, and it started with me working with kind of a world-renowned faculty member who was also a chair of a department. I started off as an administrative assistant. That position evolved into a leadership role for me at that institution.
I think my role as far as leadership started when I was working at pretrial services, so down at 201 Poplar. I was a probation officer for about a year and 6 months, and I had the opportunity to apply for a supervisory position. And after I applied for that position and was promoted, I was subsequently promoted to a manager position within Shelby County government. I was there for around 7 years, so that's how my journey with leadership started.
My journey with leadership probably started when I first graduated and got my first professional position. I was lucky enough to have a boss that wanted to be a good mentor to me and gave me the confidence to feel like I could be a manager, a leader, and kind of head up those kind of things.
All right. Research suggests that Black women who are able to transcend racial and gender-related stereotypes in leadership positions tend to build work cultures that foster inclusion and collaboration, and they tend to be fairer. What are your thoughts?
I think in general, I am all about equity. I honestly never equated that with being a Black woman in leadership. I thought it was because I was a Gen Xer. But I certainly believe in that. And I also try to find younger staff that I can mentor, that I identify and see leadership potential in. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think that I think that I do exhibit that, and I think that it takes a lot of, I guess, being very cognizant of trying to balance things between like what the University of Memphis image is, but also trying to be inclusive because we have alum and donors and that kind of thing that don't look for diversity. So trying to both please an audience, but also recognize that there are targets and future alum out there that are not that same demographic. So I do try to kind of balance between the two and make it a conscious effort to do that.
I mean, I guess from my perspective, because I'm a social worker by profession, and of course, diversity and inclusion, those are all core tenets of the profession of social work. So, I mean, I try to always balance being a social worker first and foremost, and then also being a leader and a manager, balance all those things at the same time.
Okay, thank you.
From your experiences, let's talk about imaging. On your journey to leadership, have you ever felt pressured to look a certain way, speak a certain way, or even feel a certain way?
I think being in corporate America or higher ed in general, I'm cognizant about how I present myself and how I speak. And when I get home, it's sometimes totally different than it is from 9 to 5. So yes.
Definitely, how I speak, what I speak about, how I look and present myself. I think definitely there's a bit of pressure that I feel to act a certain way when I'm around a certain group of people to make sure that I'm received in a particular way.
I mean, I would agree. I mean, I think that even when we think about how we raise our children, that we have to teach our children, especially as African American young men and women. I mean, they're basically two worlds. They're going to have to speak the correct English and grammar when they're around certain peers, and then when they're at home, then you can use your slang and other types of language as well. So I mean, I think that one from just our in general upbringing, we're taught that we have to live in two worlds. I mean, even when we think, and especially as African American women, we have to think about the way we wear our hair. And even like now, this style that I have is could be considered a little more ethnic or soulful for corporate America. But for me, I'm also going to be myself. I mean, I'm going to speak in correct grammar when I'm around a certain peer group, but also I'm going to wear my hair the way I want to wear my hair. I mean, and there are some times that of course, we've been pressured to say you're not going to wear a certain hairstyle, and we have to be careful with that. The hairstyle is not too soulful or not too ethnic and especially in academia. I mean, there is that pressure.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. So, some Black women in leadership have spoken to feeling included in some regards, but still feeling excluded. They said that sometimes they feel like they're a part of the whole, but still on the outside. Can you relate to those feelings?
I can. Oftentimes, when I find myself being the only Black woman in a room of other leaders, I still feel like I need to be heard. Like, hello, I'm the Black girl over here that need to be heard. Mm-hmm. And oftentimes, lately, I found that when I mentioned my son graduated UVA Law School, I garner instant respect from some of those same leaders that are white males. So it's a constant battle, I think.
I mean, I would agree with Stephanie, and then sometimes for me, because my personality is very strong. I mean, and sometimes you may be perceived as being, I guess, aggressive rather than if I was a white male saying some of the things that I would say in a particular meeting or a particular group, it would be taken differently because that, or even, and I would say even just to say sometimes they may say that you may be perceived as being, for lack of a better word, a bitch. I mean, just because you have an aggressive personality, which that's not what you're basically trying to put forward. But if you're being a strong person, but you're a strong Black woman, it's perceived differently.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would agree. I know that most of the time when people just see me or even hear my voice over the phone or hear my name, because it's not an average name, they get a snapshot or they kind of make me into the person that they think that I am. But I've just learned that actions kind of speak louder than words, and when they see me in my field and doing my work, or kind of like you said, when I list off certain things that I've accomplished, then they know that I'm not just some naive child. I know what I'm talking about.
Historically, the image of traditional leadership is older white males. Mm-hmm. The very opposite of that is younger Black females. Status incongruence is when traditional components of leadership are reversed between leader and the subordinate. Tell me about your experience with this. So that's when you may have a younger female leader that manages maybe a white male, and they may struggle between responding and respecting that position because who they feel is a leader is not in that position.
Okay, so I guess I'll think of an example. So when I was previously working at, not at this university, but another university, I was working at UT Health Science Center. I mean, and I did have a program coordinator that was a white male, and I didn't have any issues with him. I mean, he respected me. We respected each other. We, we were, our working relationship was fine. But I have been in another position, where I had a white male that who wanted to challenge my authority all the time because he felt as though I was not the person I was not. So there was, let's say this, that there was someone else up for the position with me, but I was selected and the other person was not. Mm-hmm. So he was, I guess he wanted that other person to get the position, but they did not. So I did go through a time with him to where he wanted to challenge my authority. And again, I just had to be the strong leader that I have the reputation of being, and I won't say put him in his place, but I had to let him know, you're going to respect my authority. So, I mean, and I guess that's how my example of that.
I haven't had to experience being someone's manager or direct report and then not respecting my authority, luckily. But I have had people who basically are on my same level and treat me as though I'm a subordinate. And again, I just kind of try to show actions speak louder than words. Like, I know what I'm doing just like you know what you're doing, and if you want to talk down to me and all of that, you can kind of keep doing what you're doing, and I'm just going to keep doing my job and doing it well. And unfortunately, because Black women are perceived as being aggressive, if we speak up for ourselves, it's better for me to say, okay, you're fine, instead of going back at him, because then, even though he's speaking down to me, if I were to combat him, then I would be in the wrong. So I have to kind of take a step back and just value my work over something disagreeing with a coworker.
For me, I haven't had the opportunity to be a direct supervisor to any white males. I do have a colleague in the office, and we were recently promoted at the same time. I was promoted to manager, he was promoted to assistant manager. Although he's not a direct support to me, I've noticed that I do tiptoe around him a little bit, right? Because I think we came in this kind of his counterparts, and I question, does he see me as his leader, as his manager? So yeah, I can see that.
Okay. Many people of color say you have to be twice as good and work twice as hard. Recent studies suggest that data, ideas, and supporting documents often appear less legitimate to white people when identified by Black women. Do your experiences support or contradict this idea?
I think historically, at least for me, I've always felt that I had to work extra hard, go the extra mile, go above and beyond, be the expert in everything I can to get that recognition again, to say, hello, look at me, I'm here. So yes, quite often.
Yeah, I agree. I feel like, again, it goes back to like our upbringing. We were taught that you're going to be criticized and there's going to be all eyes on you, and they're going to expect you to fail. So you have to do it, and you have to do it well. So that's kind of just the attitude that we kind of grow up in, and that's our mindset as we move forward to do it. If I'm going to do it, it's going to be right.
Mm-hmm. I think it's for me. It's been different because I mean, when I think back before social media, like when you would apply for a job, and because my name is Teresa Franklin, of course, you can't tell whether I'm white, Black, or Mexican or whatever. From when you get my resume, and so it's been sometimes surprising that I've maybe walked into an interview or something, and then they were a little bit taken back because I was an African American female. So I mean that's one thing. And like if I've sent out a report or something like that, and then like they don't know me because they just send me through via email. When they meet me in person, sometimes they're surprised. Mm-hmm. So I mean, and even with the old adage of us working hard. I mean, and the statistics show even though we do work twice as hard, but when we look at our salaries are still don't reflect that. Mm-hmm. So.
Right. Black women leaders are assumed to be more resilient than others. Research suggests that often black women are tasked with above average challenges and situations, especially in comparison to their colleagues. Do you feel like you've ever been given a task that other people in similar roles wouldn't have been able to handle as well as you?
I don't know if it would be that other people would handle. I think sometimes that when they will, and I don't know if this is necessarily just because we're African American females or not. Sometimes I feel like your bosses may ask you to do something just as because of a test to see if you're going to be willing to do it. I mean, I've been asked to do tasks that I felt like that were not more so tasks of maybe an assistant or subordinate. I mean, I don't. And if I'm asked to do a task and I don't have a problem with saying no, I'm not going to do it.
I think, yes, I've been asked to do things that aren't necessarily in my job description or kind of go a little bit above my pay rate or whatever. But I've had the experience of where I felt like that was an opportunity for me to show, what I can do if I were to be in a role similar, higher up. But I've also been in a position where I felt like I was being used to kind of cover up, to make sure everything was being taken care of, but then also not being credited for what I was doing. Mm-hmm. So, I think it's happened both ways. And again, like you said, I don't think that it necessarily has to do with you being a black woman. I think that when people know that you can do stuff, mm-hmm. they put certain things on you, or that you will do stuff, they'll kind of push things on you.
Mm-hmm. And just to piggyback off what you said a little bit, I think it is an opportunity. And I think that's why I'm manager today. After being at the university for only a year and a half, I got promoted to manager because I was tapped early on by the EVP to work on a special project. Because he did see that leadership potential, mm-hmm. The leadership in me. Mm-hmm. And that has evolved into this continuing leadership role here at the university.
I mean, and I think part of these kind of tasks kind of also depend on where you are in your career. Because mm-hmm. Sometimes if you're new in a newly leadership position, you have to kind of take on some things that you may not want to. But for me, I'm kind of far in, so I kind of feel like at this point, some things I'm just not going to do anymore. Yeah. And you have to, of course, that's going to be a decision that each person has to make mm-hmm. for themselves. But you get to a point, after you've been in leadership for 20 or more years, there's some things you say, hey, I'm just not going to do that.
Right. Because
you paid your dues. Mm-hmm. So I'll say that, and I don't want to seem as though to say that it's like arrogance or anything like that. Mm-hmm. But after you paid your dues and you get to do you do that work, and sometimes and then you do look at it as if it's an opportunity for you to show someone what you can do. But there are also people who will take advantage of you. So you just have to be able to kind of decipher between the two, to say, is this an opportunity for me, or is this someone actually trying to take advantage of me?
Or someone trying to, quote unquote, set you up to fail.
Exactly. And you have those situations as well. Or because there's sometimes people who want to make you the fall guy.
Yeah.
So, and I guess my advice for that is always CYA. And document.
All right, we're almost done. Okay. Research suggests that black women are commonly nurturing, caring, and have a spiritual connection. They are often inspired, motivated, and faith-driven. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, that describes me. Nurturing, I would say just virtue of a woman, but I know Teresa will disagree with that nurturing part. As you talked about a sister. I certainly would agree to all of that. Yes, I think it's inherent. I don't know if I can necessarily attribute it to one thing or one factor.
Yeah, I think that's true, or that's what, when I think of black women that I look up to, that's kind of what I see or what I think about. But I think there are other qualities that you can throw in there, but that is some of the main things that come to mind.
I mean, I think I would agree. I mean, it's in being in leadership positions, it can be stressful. I mean, and you do have to have some type of, you know, whether it's whatever religion, Christianity or other, you have to have some center. You have to be able to center yourself. Because I mean, and I'll tell you, it's been days I had to close the door and say, Lord, I don't know how I made it, but Lord, please keep me from let me hold my peace, Lord. So let me just say that. So I will say, you know, a lot of times, yeah, you do have to fall back on your faith or some type of spiritual center to keep yourself grounded.
Insane.
And keep you saying
And sane. Yeah.
Many Black young women today feel hopeless regarding obtaining professional leadership roles within the workplace, and they're moving towards entrepreneurship instead. What advice would you all give young Black women to encourage them to keep seeking out leadership opportunities?
I think you have to be kind of careful with that, because I think that it's awesome for young Black women, men also, to try to start their own businesses. But I would hope that they weren't doing that just because they think that they can't do something else. I think that as Black women, we need to be willing to be mentors and kind of show the way for other people, so that they can see, first of all, see it and know that it's a thing that happens, and then kind of help them be able to build, to kind of form their own path to doing so. But I think as Black people in general, it's great to go off on our own and try to have our own, because when you do get into these institutional positions, you are, you know, they didn't form to cater to us. So, I mean, things are changing and people are trying to be more inclusive and all of that, but the system is not made for us. So in order for us to have things that are our own, we have to make them. So I think kind of balancing out the two of encouraging entrepreneurship, but also knowing that you can do whatever you want to do. If you want to be in, you know, leadership roles within an institution, then you can definitely do that. We need to help them to be able to.
Yeah, I think my advice would be to, obviously, to get a mentor or coach, just to, you know, to someone that you can talk to when you have an issue, or, you know, fall back on if you need, you know, to just throw ideas off of. Again, and I agree with what you said wholeheartedly, that these institutions are not necessarily set up for us. You know, we have to come in and we have to kind of figure it and navigate through the best way that we can. But when you have someone who has gone through that system and can kind of coach you through, I mean, I think it can be helpful.
I think mentorship, I'm big on mentorship. I wish this university actually had a mentor-mentee program in place. Again, whenever I see a young Black woman, and I don't even say that I see leadership potential in, right? I just say, oh, here's someone, let me take her under my wing in any way I can to give her the support that she needs in whatever way, and to let her know that, you know, entrepreneurship is great. You can make it in leadership, your voice can be heard. Yes, there is a ceiling, but try to get to the ceiling, right?
Well, thank you so much, ladies. This concludes our conversation.
Thank you.